Coming to you from the dining room table at East Barbary Lane, welcome to a special episode of Full Circle, the podcast. I am your host, Martha Madrigal.
And I am your host, Charles Tyson Jr.
Our guest today is becoming one of my favorite writers, just in terms of clarity and the message that he sends. Dr. Gregory King holds his doctorate in interprofessional leadership from Kent State University, an MFA in choreographic practice and theory from Southern Methodist University, a certification in arts and culture strategy from the University of Pennsylvania School of Good Policy and Practice. And I'm going to point out, for purposes of this discussion, he also spent 7 years on Broadway in The Lion King. He is currently the Director of Education and Research at Support Black Theater in Los Angeles. Please welcome to the Full Circle table, Dr. Gregory King.
Hi.
Hello there.
Hello. Do we have mini applauses like hands clapping or something? Snapping?
We can do that. We can
Yes.
add
Can we do that?
We can add
Okay.
snaps.
Thank you for having me. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Charles and Martha.
I just want to get it on the record because I talked about it in our last episode. We had tickets to go see Cats, the Jellicle Ball. Charles has wanted to see this show since we heard about it in pre-production.
Right. And I was just like, oh my goodness, there is going to be a version of Cats that is like set against the backdrop of ballroom. I might actually like Cats.
Right. And, everyone who we knew was saying, this is just something you've never seen. This is brilliant. This takes this musical we all love to hate and turns it into something special. And then the announcement, and it had been extended into January. It was doing well. It just
Which made
won,
perfect sense to me.
3 Tony Awards, I think? And then, the news comes through, August 8th is the last performance. And a lot of white folks have things to say about this, but you wrote a brilliant piece. I read it. I said to Charles, this is where we need to talk. This is the conversation that needs to be had. And I'm just thrilled that you made the time to talk to us about this whole thing.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm going to shut up.
No, this is great. And thank you for the email, Charles. Thank you for inviting me to share your space. Thank you
Of
for
course.
reading my work and engaging with it in such a profound way. I think language matters. I think words are important. They shape your thoughts, I believe, and they can have that impact. And I want to share the story with how I became a writer, what drew me to this idea of using words to tell stories. I was in grad school at SMU, as you laid out earlier. And I was in dance history. It was my second year. And we talked about the contributions of Black folks to dance in 3 classes, 2 years of dance history. The course was called Dance History. This all-encompassing term, dance history.
Yeah, really.
And they talked about the contributions of people who looked like me in 3 classes. And I realized that there's something missing in this teaching learning environment. There was something missing. There was something missing in who was teaching it. There was something missing in what was being taught. There was something missing in how the thing was being taught. And so I became an educator out of necessity, right? I wanted to plant myself in the retelling of histories so that they can become multifaceted, multi-sourced, multidimensional to all the people who will be receiving these histories. In the same vein, I became a writer because there were stories that needed to be told, right? True stories, multiple stories, stories of interiority, and they were missing. And so when I became a dance writer, dance critic, it started with me seeing shows and reviewing them. And I'm using air quotes on the review because, what exactly is a review, right? And I've been having this conversation with this idea of criticism. When you critique something, what should be told? What is left? What's the residue?
Right.
And of
Come
course,
on, residue.
through teaching, through choreographing, through writing, you realize that there is a power in certain things. When you stand in front of the room as a teacher, you have power. So what you say matters, how you teach matters, who you touch, like all of those things matter.
Very true. Yeah.
As a writer, you also have power. What you say matters, right? And so I came from this history of this lineage of reading reviews that would make or break an artist, make or break a creative. And I didn't want to contribute to that energy, that atmosphere, that the thing that would make or break someone should not be my responsibility. And so I took a step back and I realized that I wanted to write about how what was happening on stage reflected contemporary society. I didn't care how high your legs went. I didn't care how many turns you did. I wanted to know how what was on stage, how it reflected blackness, how it reflected queerness, how it reflected ableism, and or was having conversations around that, how it gave insight to classism. I wanted to see if I was reflected on what was on stage. And so I became a writer for that reason, so much so that I told my editor that I only wanted to go to shows that were in non-traditional spaces. Right? I didn't want to go see another
Okay.
Nutcracker. Who does? Who needs to see
Charm.
another Nutcracker? I'm good.
Not I.
Right? Right? And so I wanted to see the shows that were not getting funded. I want to see the works of people who were, rubbing two pennies together to make something happen, having a performance in their living room, something happening in the pool. I want to see how people were thinking and reviving things. So, and this is the entry point to what I'm talking about with cats. When we think and talk about revivals, Black queer people have been doing this idea of reviving, breathing life into something for centuries, right?
Yes.
And so when Black queer people put their creative energy together and say, let's revive cats, I just knew it was gonna be brilliant. But this brilliant?
Right?
Oh.
But this brilliant? We're talking about how they rebuilt grammar, right? They rebuilt the grammar from the original Cats into a Black queer ballroom aesthetic of vocabulary, of nuances. And when we see it, there is a sigh that happens because we didn't have to show up and ask for excuses, and ask to be excused, and ask for permission. We showed up and we were accepted. And that's the beautiful part of what Cats was able to do.
Indeed. I was saying like there was so much like the way it came across, it was accessible to everyone, air quotes on everyone. But there was that shorthand that if you knew ballroom, if you were a Black or brown queer person, you caught some things that might have gone over a lot of people's head. Like my favorite moment that, or at least it's the one that keeps coming back to me, is that one moment when the commentator, he's walking and he has the wings and he gets chopped. And the other character comes up behind him and goes, I thought that was kind. I lost my shit. I lost my shit. I lost my shit. I'm like, that is a sentence you have never heard uttered on a Broadway stage before this moment, please and thank you.
I am getting goosebumps as I hear you talk through this, because there is something about legibility that has to be addressed, right? When you get it, when it doesn't have to be translated, there is an ease and an acquiesce that happens, right? I hear something that happens in my everyday life, which is why I do believe there is a distance, that there is a disconnect sometimes for certain audiences to be able to tap in. One, they're not that curious. They're not that curious. They don't want to know. They there is a, I believe, right? And these are all my thoughts coming to fruition. And so hearing a language, a dialect that is spoken on stage, something that I use on a daily basis, it makes me go, that's a version of who I am. That is
Mm-hmm.
it. But I also ask the same question as I step away, or not the same question, an additional question. Do I need that kind of validation? What about, and of course, representation matters, but I'm asking,
Right.
because there's something about it that's validating.
Well, yeah.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, I believe the validation comes in a way because we're asking whiteness to validate us. In certain
Right.
spheres, we're asking whiteness to validate us. And while I don't believe we need it, I do believe it needs to be shown.
You know, I love the way that you described your writing because you're talking about your lens,
Yes.
and it's never been more important, and language has never been more important.
Yeah.
We are alive at a time when the world is upside down, and so are the words. And what resonated with me was the way that I have sat in training after training that was supposed to tell people about transness. And, where I was interested enough, I wound up teaching the damn class because we're not doing a great job. There was a moment in the show, with Grisabella and Syllabub. I was already crying and I started to bawl. Because I've spent the last 6 years with young trans people, and with me in the theater was the trans mentor that I have worked beside that entire time with young trans people. And the moment between Grisabella and Syllabub spoke to me in ways that just reached down, and I was sobbing
Say more about
through it.
that.
There is a connection between trans people, and there is a connection, when we learn from one another. I've sat on panels talking about intergenerational activism and the way that we do need to be. And I say, please do listen to, what I've picked up in the course of my life. Please hear it. And then throw it away and decide how you're going to proceed.
Sure.
But where the youth and the energy of Syllabub, he had reached out to Grisabella and touched her, and she kind of came back to life. And there was that moment where his energy touched her, and that is what this is about. I mean, the work with young people, I work with young trans people, and that work, when I see folks finally see themselves and understand themselves, and it is just as healing for me.
Yeah.
And I sobbed all the way through it. And Chastity Moore happened to be standing or approach as we were standing backstage waiting to meet Andre, and Elizabeth and I got to have a conversation with her about that moment, about those two cast members and the relationship that they have. And, off stage, it's very much the connection that we saw on stage.
Yeah.
It was transformative. I don't know how much of the audience even caught
Sure.
that level, but, and there were, I think Charles started crying during Jellicle Cats in the beginning and didn't stop until the end.
Yeah, my experience of the show went something like this: Jellicle Cats sobbing, and then that was it for the entire show.
For the whole show.
I love this idea of two people, strangers, whomever, teacher, student, a mentor, mentee, employee, employee, when they meet, connect, right? That thing, that fuse that happens. I'm also interested in what led to this moment, right? And it's always something that I'm asking. I try my hardest, which is why when I write, I'm always trying to be introspective. I'm always sure, we can meet and we can go have a drink, we can have dinner, we can have a happy conversation, hug, and call it a day. But I'm also interested in how you got to this moment, because it helps me to identify the energy with which I am engaging. It helps me to understand a mindset with which I'm engaging. And I am telling you right now, I am not interested in spanking white people, and I'm not interested. I will not make space for anyone or anything that is not a reflection of goodness. I
I love
can't
that.
do it. Like, I can't do it. And so I have a short fuse for anything that is racist, homophobic, heterosexism, transphobic, xenophobic, fat phobia. I don't want to do it. And so whenever, yes, we can come, you can stand in my face and we can have a conversation, we can dap and, but the minute I sense, smell, or sniff anything that leans into oppression, it's something that doesn't work for me. And so we have to talk about this idea, and I asked this earlier, this idea of validation and do we want to be validated? Broadway, they're working within a white atmosphere, a white environment, a white history, a white paradigm,
Right.
right? White
Yeah.
context, white lenses, the white funders. These are things that are true and real, not in a negative way. It's just the reality. We have to
Right.
be honest
Completely.
and real about not only our experiences, but the people who are making decisions about Black permanence, about queer permanence, right? About Black queer permanence. There are white people making these decisions, and we have to start having these honest conversations.
This is true. This is true. And, I've noticed there are individuals like RuPaul, for instance, who I know was a producer for Strange Loop. Like, there are these moments where notable Black people are in that seat, but then I'm like, how much of it is to preserve and promote, and how much of it is, oh, let me get in on this from the ground floor and get some of that Monet. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh. Ooh, I'm rocking back and forth, and rocking for me is calming, but it's also
Okay.
when it's also that feeling of, oh yes, I'm feeling it, right? I'm about to like do a little hiya bashalinta, but
Give it to me now.
but I will say, there's so many questions, and if we get to the root and or the sweet spot of honesty, then I think we can move in the right direction. And I'm not hearing the truth. I am not hearing the truth, because if we as a collective decide, okay, we're going to do this thing, we're going to revive Cats, and it's going to be, Harlem, drag culture, balls, and blackness and queerness going to be ignited and augmented and
Right.
amplified. What does it look like to take it from a reading to a production? What does it look like to go from a reading to a 5-year run? What will it take?
Right. Right.
Because it's going to take a different kind of engine. And are we willing to commit? And it's the same questions I ask institutions and organizations who have been, I'm sure they've shifted now since they have to, but since they started this whole idea of DEI, or this drive towards DEI, how many organizations and institutions were fully committed to ensuring that their mission and their actions are in alignment with supporting the very people that they say they care about? What does that look like? Because I guarantee you, me going up for tenure as a Black queer man looks very different than a white professor going up for tenure. So I'm asking the institution, when was the last time you took a Black faculty member and on a tenure track from assistant professor all the way through their tenure line to associate professor with tenure? When was the last time you did that? And I'm going to ask the same question to the Broadway League, right? Maybe even to Equity. When was the last time you took Black creatives with a new idea, this idea of new work, right? When did you invest enough to take it to full production, and you committed to ensuring that it got a 3-year run? When was the last time?
Right.
When was the last time?
I can't.
Has it ever?
Since Porgy and Bess.
Right. Wow.
Mm. Mm.
And don't get me started on that bullshit.
And we do have to ask, who are the people betting against Blackness? Who are the people, maybe not betting against, but not betting for? Who are the people now investing in telling Black queer stories?
Right.
Right, because we know, perhaps they weren't making over $1 million a week. But I don't think they've made under 888,000 or whatever.
Sure.
This entire time. And what I really want, at least to be part of this conversation, perhaps not even the most interesting part, is, where have we let something ride? Because you reference it in the piece and the article, which we will link to, When the Ball Ends Early, which you wrote. It's up on Substack. But you allude to that idea. Like, we know that some have coasted. They have been given, I believe you said, grace. Yeah. And I think that's the perfect word. And, exactly this conversation is leading there. In order to offer grace, especially in this high stakes game, I suppose, one has to feel that grace somewhere inside, right? They have to be connected to the work. And I think we're seeing what happens when they're not so.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet it's a transformative piece. And it's fun. It is not, there were so many themes and but it's also, I left with joy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I left having experienced joy.
I left changed from how I walked in. I just know I did.
I gotta tell you, a whole lot of white people that are very invested in costuming and everything else out in the audience. So, how come 5 months? How come?
Yeah, we have to ask the question with producers, and I get it. Capitalism sucks. I do get that.
Well,
and
yeah,
it's
that's
something that
true.
we're all, and it's something that we're constantly engaging with. This idea of how do I make back my money? Is that the core? Is that the center of your value system?
Right.
I don't know if we're going to ask these questions, because I do believe, and it's really easy for me to align this conversation to higher ed. It really is, because it's in lots of ways it's similar. You say you want to hire these people who are going to do these things. Will this person coming in to advocate for Black faculty or to advocate for a faculty member to get tenure promotion, will this person have access to a team or the systems that's going to make it easy for that person to do their job, right? I'm going to invest $1 million into this project. It can't stop there. Right. Who are the people going on the airwaves and on TV to promote this show? What does marketing and publicity look like? Do we have a thing where we go from different boroughs? Like, it cannot look like the tradition. We have to take a step back and be creative problem solvers. If you know that something might taint, then what's your backup plan? And how are you putting something into the engine to ensure that it lasts and do the thing that you say you want it to do? What if you said, okay, we're going to do this Broadway run, something that's never been done. We're going to take it a step further. And we're going to do 5 weeks in Manhattan, or 5 months in Manhattan on Broadway on 48th Street, whatever. And then we're going to lock up shop. And then we're going to go to Queens, and we're going to rent out the Armory and do it 5 months there. So this idea of it moving from places to places to make it a little bit more accessible to different communities. I don't know. I'm just talking off the top of my head right now, right? How do we take this thing? Now it becomes a thing that's traveling. It's been marketed differently. People are now hearing about it. It's now a buzz. It's now being written about. We have to. If we approach this thing with the same resources that we do the white legacy productions, it's bound to fail. It's bound to fail. I cannot teach my Black students the same way I teach my white students.
Right.
Okay.
Because of that, it's really important. Go ahead, Martha.
Oh, absolutely true. And I put it through the only lens that I have professionally as a trans person in the workforce. And, the question that's sort of burning as you talk is, I have encountered this idea where, okay, they said they wanted to do the thing. Well, we did it. We did it. It's done now. For whatever reason. I built a program that won 2 awards inside of 2 years, 2 social innovation awards. By every metric, we were in the black when we shouldn't have been. And this is mental health and addiction. And yet the grant went away, program went away. A little bit more to it. But sometimes I feel like it's, well, we want to do this thing to say we did the thing.
Right.
Because people will stop talking about it so we can stop investing energy here. Because through that white lens, it becomes problematic.
We want to do the thing so we can be seen doing the thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean we want to have the thing.
Right. Through that heteronormative lens, we gave you trannies air and space long enough. Right. We did it. Well, it got a little more expensive, so sorry. And it can be in academia. I spent 12 years there. In theater, in the arts, and in the workplace. One champion can get a lot done. That one champion goes away and everybody else goes, well, I don't know, that wasn't my thing.
Right.
Listen.
And then here we are. How far back do we go? I am listening.
There was a story. There was some research done with within the film industry, and they were talking about I think it was a Craft Institute from Dartmouth, and they did this research around why is it that black shows are not getting produced, and the conversation kind of leaned to the answer being white producers were saying that black stories, black shows don't sell. Especially overseas. Oh, it doesn't sell. But that's not true. That's not true. How much did Sinners make? How much did Wakanda Forever make? How much did Black Panther make? So it's not that it doesn't sell. There's a detachment from you don't want to sell yourself.
Right.
You don't think that it's relevant. You don't find it valuable. You don't want to augment the voices of this demographic. And so you create a narrative around it to not allow it to live in its permanence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there. If I'm working to save lives you don't believe need to be saved in the first place.
Exactly. Exactly. And the part of it has to do, we have to start rewriting the story. We as black people, we as black queer people, and we're doing it. We're doing it fiercely. I believe that. And so, I'm always going to write hard for the black queer immigrant. Let's go, But I do believe that we have to have the conversation, and we have to, a lot of times, sit on the same stage and say, you are not putting your money where your mouth is.
Ding. Yeah. Yeah. Because that takes the courage of your conviction.
Yeah. And what does that look like? It is work. People do not want to do the work, right? When you hire me to become, I don't know, the dean of faculty, I want to ensure that faculty enjoy coming to work. I want to ensure that faculty work-life balance is centered. I want to ensure that everyone that you hire on a tenure track eventually gets tenure, not may get tenure. No, you already saw their CV. You know that they're tenure worthy. So what kind of support are we putting into the engine to ensure and to secure their tenure? You don't go, okay, this person might get tenure. Let's hire them, and then we'll see where it lands. And that's how I think producers are looking at creative projects.
Oh yeah, no, it's and by that example, it's dangling one carrot above everyone's head, as opposed to carrots for everyone, which is how it should be. But and you have the nerve to call your union equity, and then you know what I mean. And I don't know. It's that thing, like Martha said, of you want to be seen doing the work as opposed to doing the work. We put queer people, queer black people in a queer black context on stage. But once it's no longer the cool new thing, once the new done rubbed off it, as my father would say, then what? Which basically means once the white pop culture attention span has found something else, then what? How important is it now? And to whom?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the conversations that are happening and should be happening, of course, it has to move from conversation to action, right? And I do want to know, what were the conversations? What did they look like? What that was happening in the room? Who were the people at the table? What happened for you to pull the plug on a show that was, by all metrics, like Martha say, doing well, right? Relatively speaking, there may have been a dip at times, and there are other shows on Broadway not doing well. But what happened for you to go, oh, this is something that I am going to choose to not bet on.
Right. Yeah, because I know that theater was full when we were there. And, you know.
So there's a market for it.
Right.
There is a market for it.
Oh, I don't know if I've been to a show where there was that much energy in the audience. With the fans clacking and people just engaged and to their feet and dancing.
Yeah.
What's the seating
seats.
capacity for the theater it's in? Do you know?
1,000. We did this. What is the capacity?
okay.
1,100 and something.
I think it was like
1,100.
What I read, it said something like 1,200 to 1,600, depending upon which ticketing thing you were looking at.
I thought it was more like
yes.
11:50, between 11:50 and 12:30 or something like that. It was a smaller.
Is it one of the smaller houses?
I don't know about that. I feel like I've been in smaller theaters. I don't have the answer to that question.
So I'm thinking, as a producer, but also as an artist, if this wasn't doing well in a 1,200 seat theater, was the conversation, or could the conversation have gone, can we take it to a smaller house to ensure that the overheads are not so, so that we can ensure that the story stays and gets played and gets seen, and we make our money back, because that's a part of the conversation. What was the conversation? Do we shift environment? Do we, rotate cast and bring in some names, right? Because that was also an option. I'm sure you could have brought in a few big names to get people and attract people. What was the conversation? Just, we're good?
Right.
I can't imagine. And we are likely to never know. Because, it's going to be the postmortem that we're going to hear about. And that, I think, is my frustration just in the news, is like, well, now's when to fix it.
Right.
What needs fixing here? What needs reimagining?
This would be like a teachable moment.
But
It's
again,
the
if you come
reaction.
to, are you looking at, preserving something worth preserving and ensuring its legacy and its time in existence? Or are you looking at it like, we did the thing. Sorry, it didn't work.
That was fun.
Because that's what I'm hearing. Sorry, it didn't. It just didn't work. What do you mean it didn't work?
Right.
What does that look like?
What does that look like? And of course, I'm speculating, because we weren't in on the conversation, but I'm voicing my frustration with the people who make the decisions to not take a step back and go, oh, this community, these people, these stories have not been main stories, have not been amplified stories, have not been necessary stories. How do we change the narrative? How do we flip the script?
Right.
Because when people say things like Black Lives Matter or Trans Lives Matter, it's because at times we exist in spaces where it doesn't feel like it does.
Right.
You gave us a list of other examples of this happening. I have it in front of me. I mean, Ain't No Mo, 2022, 22 previews, 21 performances. Closed.
And I must say, Ain't No Mo, that was after critics picked. So the people who are saying yay or nay, we're saying go see this. And it's still closed.
Right.
Cooper, who was the youngest Black American playwright in Broadway history at the time, launched a Save Ain't No Mo campaign that drew Whoopi Goldberg, Billy Porter, RuPaul, and a buyout performance from Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. Producer Lee Daniels said the industry doesn't always embrace our stories.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. A Strange Loop, 2022-23.
Which I'm still sad I missed.
13 previews and 301 performances, won the Pulitzer Prize for drama and the Tony for Best Musical.
There you go.
I also think about like Fat Ham.
Fat Ham.
Like Fat Ham blew everyone away when it had its run in Philly. And then when it went to Broadway, that just seemed like a natural progression. And then it started like racking up accolades on Broadway. And then it closed. And it's like, and I've only been to 3 Broadway shows on Broadway. I do not pretend to know the ins and outs of how all that works. So at first I was like, oh, I guess things just have a shelf life, and then I stopped and I was like, wait a minute, how long did Cats run? How long did Chicago run? How, you know what I'm saying? So
Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis,
that
yes.
part, the things that when I hear
where was Les Mis at 5 months? I wonder.
Right.
Where was Phantom at 5 months?
Right.
Two shows
And
I don't care if I ever see again.
Right.
Especially Phantom.
There are shorter ways to kill yourself.
Well, right. There was a great line in Jeffrey that, Les Mis, all that for toast. Like, love the music, hate it.
Yeah.
But what are they in, 25 years or something? So
Yeah.
where were they at the 5 month mark? Because that looks more expensive to produce.
Sure.
Doesn't it?
And I don't know, and I don't want to pretend to know the math behind what's happening. I am literally talking about the sociology behind and the cultural appetite for the legacy pieces and or the new pieces. I've been having this conversation in LA around Black theater and what stories need to be told, who gets to tell them, why it's important for us to invest in Black theater, because I believe no one is coming to save us. And I know no one is coming to save us, and I don't know what that looks like in theory. And actually in practice, I don't know what it looks like for us as Black creatives to hold each other. I don't know what that looks like for us to put money into what we do so that we can benefit and get to see ourselves, which is why the last BET Award was to me one of the best produced shows I'd ever seen them do in a while, right? It was so powerfully rich and satisfying, right? The talent was there, the vibe was there, the energy was there, the community was there, the love was there, the joy that you speak of was there. This is true.
Yeah,
it was present and almost you could I watched it on the screen, so I couldn't touch it, but it was emanating through the screen, right? I wanted to be there, and there's something that we do that that nobody else does, right. So I know that when Black hands touch that thing, it's already magic. When trans hands touch that thing, because you're talking about people who were told to make $1 out of 15 cents.
Right.
And that is metaphoric, right?
While I tie your hands behind your back.
We survived ourselves in lots of ways. Right. So I know when we think about our writing and our creative practices, it's going to show up. You can't tell me it doesn't show up.
And I'm going to say, it's a nuanced conversation, but it's not really. But, that white lens does come in and say, well, what do you want? Because you don't want us involved in your shit, but you want us to support your shit.
Right.
But we hear it about queer work, and the ever-present argument about, should straight actors take gay roles? And I always give the same example, which was The Whale.
Boo.
Brendan Fraser. Whatever, gained weight, wore a fat suit, did the thing. The performance was fine. It was whatever. But then he went on to say, and this is my problem. He went on to say, this is not a gay story. This is a universal story. The fuck it is.
Nah, bitch.
The fuck it is. How many straight people get fired from their job, lose their life because they're straight?
Yeah.
Show me one.
Yeah.
And then you can tell me how universal the story is.
Right.
That is a queer story, my friend. Right. And the fact that you don't see it is exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Right. And it's the minimizing that erases us.
And then, and then they say, well, what do you want? It wouldn't have been made without. Milk wouldn't have been made without Sean Penn. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you want to hear a little bit and you want the work. But there's such fragility in the conversation.
Yeah.
And then we're the ones who are insane.
Right.
Black, brown, queer, trans.
Yeah, I'm a different breed because I don't know how the pretense thing works, right? If I am a part of a community, I want to walk in with transparency and trust and believe that when I say that I'm committed to something, that commitment is fully realized, right? And so when we talk about inequality or inequity, or lack of diversity. And look, and exclusion. We're talking about sometimes people making a deliberate effort to do the thing, but they're not saying it. And that is when I don't know how to engage, because your actions are not matching your words.
Right.
And your words are not matching your actions. So I don't know how to engage with this facade.
Right. Exactly.
Did I say I'd figured it out? I haven't. No, not at all. Not at all. Right. Yeah. And I think that is the only approach we can take, as humans that, are marginalized for whatever, is to show up in authenticity and to show up, and my word is my bond, my word.
Yeah.
And we keep doing it, and we keep getting, thwarted in different ways.
I hear you. This might be a little left field, but stay with me for a second.
Absolutely.
You know how sometimes, and this is something I believe in. I was once on a search committee at my former institution, and we were doing a search for one of the upper positions, upper administration. And we had just done the first round of interviews, and it was a Zoom interview. And a white woman had just been interviewed, and a white woman serving on the committee, after the interview ended, said to the committee members, "I like her. She looks like me."
Huh.
Hear me out.
Uh-huh.
We're interviewing for a position, right? A dean, a VP, whatever it was. And the person interviewing, the person doing the person on the committee said, "I like this person, this candidate. I like this candidate because she looks like me."
Mm-hmm.
Too often, when the people making the decisions are a certain thing, psychologically and sociologically, I'm sure, you're drawn to, you are in alignment with, you find an affinity for the thing that looks familiar to you,
right?
The thing that makes sense to you, the thing that looks like you. And I have no doubt that is why it's easy when you have an all-white jury and a black defendant for them to go guilty, because there's a disconnect. They don't, but when they see the little white boy, little Roger, because he's our next door neighbor, right? He's my nephew, he's my son. It's easier to have grace for the thing that is familiar to you. And so even with funders, it's easy for them to fund, support, advocate for the stories that they live, the stories that they see themselves in, the stories that they value. Maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, but it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
I'm going to insert a question, and then we're going to take a quick break. They didn't revive. They revived fucking Cats, the whitest thing that ever went on to Broadway. That's what they revived.
Story about Cats.
I mean, they said, let me take that shit. I mean, this is like the chitlins of Broadway. Like, let me take the worst of what you got and show you what is possible.
Oh.
And yet,
you better talk that talk, Martha. Come on,
I just want to leave that thought, and we'll be right back.
Work.
It's true, though, right?
Yeah. Yes. And we're back. Okay. You're like, what?
It's just funny, like, break.
It was a break. It was a good break, yes.
Back to, yeah, they did this with Cats.
The Chitlins of Broadway might be the subtitle to this episode. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
but no,
like.
what you're
I
saying
can't
is true. Like,
stand that.
how many revivals have been literally cut and paste, right? Old production, new
Oh,
production, same thing,
sure.
just new. Yeah. And these people went in and they said, you give me a 6 and I'm going to turn it into a 12. I know that
Right.
was a random analogy. And they did
Mm-hmm.
it with flair, with glitter,
Oh my
with
God.
stories, with voguing, with duck walks, with pancakes,
Yes.
with twirls, and the people loved it.
And none of so I'm thinking about that production of Oklahoma, the revival of Oklahoma.
That was just in my head as well.
Right, where they didn't change a single line of dialogue
Or a song.
or a note of the music, but they changed the tonal approach to the work, and it went from being this like corny, like heel kicking musical to like this dark character study. And
That survived long enough to tour, and that looked like a pretty big cast too.
that part,
But it was, I mean, it was a brilliant retelling. It
Yeah.
really was. I was very surprised that I liked it as much as I did. We took a group of 25 trans folk to see it because there were 2 trans cast members.
oh yeah,
In
and
fairly
Hennessy.
significant roles in the touring company. Sis, who had been imposed, and
Hennessy Winkler.
Yes, Hennessy Winkler. Because representation matters. That got more time, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a chick in a wheelchair, and then there was like that. I mean,
Oh yeah, it had time to
went
like
through
filter
iterations.
whole major casting and then do a national tour.
Right, I didn't realize how dark that shit was until they just like showed you.
Well, that's why I wanted to see
I went,
it.
oh my god!
But
oh my god! I remember seeing this as a high school production. What the?
right,
Yeah.
and I was low key expecting, I was not surprised that they didn't change any of the music in Cats. But I was also interested in seeing if they did like add more of like a to it.
Right,
Well,
right.
well,
But and they did add that layer, but onto the original score. And then part of me is like, what would have happened if they would have like actually altered a note of Sir Lloyd Webber's creation? Like how much longer would it have run? I don't know. It's just interesting. Like when you what's the word, revive the sacred shows, and you do something new to it, like how much reverence do people like approach it with, like oh my god, they did what to Cats? Oh my god, they did what to Oklahoma?
they made it good.
Well, also that, more to the point,
They made it good.
I do have a question that I want to ask both of you. If you had your choice of a revival or a new work, what would it be and why?
Instinctively I want to say new work,
Why?
because I always like to see new things and new ideas, but at the same time, I guess it depends on a revival of what and who's
And
doing
how it's
it.
done.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like Broadway for many years now has been a regurgitation.
Yes.
More often than we keep taking it's like, well, people like that, so let's throw it on Broadway and see what happens.
Right.
Rather than Hamilton showing up out of nowhere and being this entirely new way of telling a story.
Right.
Yeah, I want to talk about Hamilton. Not talk about, ask a question
Yeah,
about Hamilton,
do it.
only because it's something that I think about now that Lin-Manuel has the juice, right? Are people going because it's Lin-Manuel, or are they going because it's good? And I'm not saying that it can't be both.
Right.
I'm wondering if that's the thing. If once you get the bug and you just start not rocking them out, are people just going to show up? And can you bet on that?
It's
I think it's because it's good.
well, yes,
Okay.
It is good.
it is good. Or are we specifically still talking about Hamilton, or just anything that
I mean,
Lin-Manuel
well,
does?
but he's done other things that didn't, In the Heights,
Well, In the
did
Heights,
okay, but
in its original run, there was nothing else like it. So
that's true.
you know.
That's true.
But I was gonna say, I think it is a lot easier to bank on his name and reputation. But everything he's done has not been stellar.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't do bad. Let's be honest. He doesn't make things that aren't good, but some things are better than others.
Right.
Sure.
So
It's a hard question because we're talking about
Right.
Broadway.
right.
And I mean, we go to a lot of experimental theater. We go to a lot of, new work that in a 50-seat theater. And that's where those ideas percolate. And we've seen some excellent stuff.
I guess it comes down to with the revival thing, again, what is it and what is your approach to it?
Yes.
If, you said,
Right.
oh, they're redoing Death of a Salesman. Yawn.
Which they are. And
Right.
people are, I don't know, going to see it. I don't care.
Right. But if you say they're doing Death of a Salesman, but it's all women and it's in space. Okay, say more things. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Right. And I would go,
Okay.
nah,
Yeah.
still a no.
I mean, yeah.
New work
For me.
New revivals that feel like new works. I
love that.
That
That's what I'm
approach.
saying.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It took someone, my Elizabeth, saying, I went to see Oklahoma. It was fab, the revival. Because when I first heard it, I went, why? I'm like, no. This is incredible. Why? And then she went and she said, oh, we're going.
Right.
We're going to see, you have to see what they did.
Yeah.
And she was right. I was blown away by this familiar, old, trite-ish, what I thought is actually this very dark story. And it was always there. It was always right there.
Oh, yeah.
But, when you get enough white people smiling, I guess everything looks like a picnic. I don't...
That has layers.
Well...
That has many layers, right?
Yeah, so I'm interested in revival, but it just feels like it has become this great regurgitation.
Yeah.
And
I think too that is very true. I
which would you prefer?
I like them both. I like both because my entry into both would be what's new about it? Why is it necessary? And what's it saying about contemporary society? I am not interested in a regurgitation. I'm just not. But I'm also interested in another layer of it, which is what if money wasn't what if money wasn't in the equation? Right? If it wasn't a money thing, say money was not in the equation, I wonder, would we see more new works? Because there is a betting issue, right? People want to be risk averse. I don't want to put money into something that I'm not sure I'm going to get back. But at some point, but you did it with Hamilton, right? You've done it with, you did it with Cats initially. You've done it with In the Heights when it did come out. Lion King, there was nothing like it at the time.
Right.
And so if money wasn't in the equation and or on the table, would we see more new works? And I'm really interested in that because when we think about the intergenerationality of it all, how are younger creatives being wooed into thinking about putting something new on the stage? They can see that it is actually beneficial to be smart thinkers, new thinkers, creative thinkers, because in their minds they're going, well, it's not going to last, or, oh, they're going to put more money into something that they can bet on. I'm wondering, what's the conversation around young creatives feeling that there's a space for them to be new, original. There's nothing original, but you get the gist. New in telling their stories.
Well, that's what made me go back to thinking about Strange Loop. Like that was a risk. It was. But I also have a theory about that. There is something to be.
bear with me. There is something
Come on.
about legibility, and I don't know. I might get canceled for this. I think
Not by
there's
us.
a softness and an ease with which white people accept black stories. They want to see the slave stories. They want to see, the slave play at times. There is something about blackness asking for permission that makes white people comfortable.
Uh-huh.
And they're black, and unless it's a story that is centered around slavery, or centered around the white saviorism, I don't know if black people feel, because we have to give them something that lets them leave feeling like, well, I'm one of those good white people, so yeah, I can relate to that. You know what I mean? If it's anything else of black joy where whiteness is not centered, yeah, we don't want to see that. Too many happy blacks. Too many happy blacks.
Right. They're singing and dancing, but not for us.
Right. They're not really our entertainment, because there is something to it. Black people should exist to entertain white people.
Right. Yeah.
Compare and contrast that with queer theater.
Yeah.
Queer stories.
Yeah.
We've only just thought about, telling trans stories that aren't a tragic warning.
Right.
Ace Ventura with the famous, vomiting in the toilet for however long.
Right.
Same thing we did with the Crying Game, early 90s, with the big reveal. And then, of course, the immediate reaction is to vomit. All of that, like the Silence of the Lambs with the skin, just on and on and on.
Yeah. Something just occurred to me.
We don't like to hear, necessarily triumphant stories where those queers just get to walk around being queer.
Right.
When we stuff ourselves into little boxes, and what the fuck, I don't want to watch them happy.
Right. I was just thinking, like, that image.
How God intended it.
That image from The Crying Game and Ace Ventura, like that, the reaction to the big reveal. I feel like that did for trans people it did the same harm in the public eye for the perception of trans people the way D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation did for black people. Like that's how you equate A and B.
Yeah.
And like those negative images were the foundation of our perception in pop culture and popular media. It just occurred to me, I think there's something to that.
Right. And at a time when we look at the political landscape and the vernacular that, is just too present, whether I think it's a small percentage of people or not, I would hope more people were interested in preserving something as innovative, as queer affirming.
Yeah.
I also feel like
this.
The new ideas.
I want to believe that about Broadway, and I'm sometimes naive.
Right. I feel like the new ideas on Broadway tend to be more readily accepted in the plays and the straight plays, as opposed to the musicals.
I see that. I see that.
Okay.
Like more often, I think. I think the revivals tend to get more play consistently in terms of musicals. Just based on what I've seen, because there's a lot of plays I'm like, oh, that's interesting, oh, I would see that, but I don't really get that reaction so much with the musicals.
Yeah. I will say too, oftentimes I find myself thinking about the fact that Broadway is oftentimes known as the Great White Way, and for a long time it's been centered around certain stories, the people who get to play the lead roles, the cast, right? You'll have one black person every now and then in different shows. There'll be a black show maybe one every 5 years, and so there's a reality to the history of this this culture, Broadway culture. And so when they start doing things, everything that's happening somehow has to align with what already exists, and that tends to be the metric, right? They're gauging their success off a certain thing. They're gauging, their publicity and their marketing off certain things. Everything is through this central lens, and I am wondering if it's time to burn it all down metaphorically, right? So that we can build something a little bit more equitable, because we will not, there's no way, once you have a system built on white supremacy, and I'm talking about lots of different systems within,
Oh yeah.
the world, the global world. If most things are built with this central idea through this central lens, and now people are trying to find a way to combat it without addressing the central thing, we're always going to come up short.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were actually having this
That's how it's
conversation.
played out so far, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, we were having this conversation yesterday, I think. Like, why can't they make live screenings, like live streamings of Broadway shows more of a thing, or a pay-per-view thing more of a thing? Like, there's that one subscription service, but like,
Yeah, MetLive was the example.
right.
Yeah.
Where they simulcast in a theater, and I think it's $25 a ticket, and it's as if you're there, you're seeing it
Right.
on the screen. And that idea, is it possible to bring more revenue in,
Right.
to make it feasible? Everything being
And do they count that revenue as part
expensive.
of the success of the show? Because, if your only metric is people physically getting their ass in the theater, then there's a certain level of economics that, surrounds that, because, Broadway tickets ain't cheap. Right. Even the cheap Broadway tickets ain't cheap.
Are not cheap, right? Right.
And you also have to be able to get yourself to New York. So, but if someone in, Podunk, Michigan, or even like the South Bronx, can get a $25 pay-per-view, multiply that by however many, like, that would actually create equity, and then you would really get an idea of who wants to see what, you know?
You would.
That's true.
Broader, more right.
But
More
then
exposure.
it's like, okay, well, who do we actually want to see see the shows then? I think is what that comes down to. Because there always has been an argument about the elitism of Broadway.
Sure.
And so it's like, is that a symptom, or is that, a feature? Is that a bug or a feature? You know what I'm saying?
Well, we used to be able to go into, I mean, this isn't all right, maybe it was 15, 16 years ago, but my cousin and I used to take a long weekend, go into New York, and then, go to the TKTS, and a half price ticket was like $40 or $45
Right.
at that
What is
point.
it now?
Oh God, it really depends. It depends.
I can only imagine.
But a half price ticket can be over 100. It just depends on the show. But I mean, that was the high end. We saw shows for $30.
This is true.
And so we would see a play, a musical, a play, like we might see 3 shows in the course of a long weekend. And we could afford to.
Right. But that's the thing.
I don't know that we could afford to now. I haven't looked in a long time, but
Yeah.
it is. There is elitism involved. I want a comeback story. I don't know. I want Tyler Perry to fund 6 more months of this instead of paying for another funeral. But I want a lot of things in this world.
From your mouth, I think what you're saying is necessary. I think it's. I don't like having these conversations after the fact, right? We're always reacting to these things. And so it just makes me go, who are the people front ending this? Well, what if, and how do we, and what are we aligning ourselves with? I will always fail if I'm going to date a guy, right? And the guy say, hey, I prefer white guys. I will always come up short. Because I'm not. There's no way, right?
Can't be that.
We might
Yeah.
go on. We might. We might go get some coffee and we might grab a meal. Bada bing, bada boom.
Right.
But I will always come short because there's a sensuality to your attraction that I will never ever meet.
Okay,
There's a
that's
metric
such a
that I'll never
hypothetical. I
meet.
cannot imagine that, but okay.
But so that there's that. So I'm wondering if we're going to be having these really robust conversations with everyone in the room, are we willing to put everything on Front Street to talk about why we make the choices we make? Why
Right.
do we not, and why do we see certain stories as not viable? Why are we doing this? And then there has to be a cleanse. There has to be a cleanse, and there has to be a meeting of the minds. And I don't know what that looks like, but it has to start with a shakedown.
Yeah.
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 I just, again, this point in history, this look around, the rhetoric every fucking day. I mean, there's a reason we don't record every week like we used to. My soul can't take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot sit with these stories week after week
Yeah.
and try to delve into them and still function as a human. I can't do it. And it's because, it's this full-on attack. It's Project 2025. It's this insane government that we are living under right now that we swore could never come here. Well, of course we knew it could come here. And to have something this beautiful, pure, magical, that celebrates the very thing being degraded, the very people being degraded and decried and lied about. Good God, can we all send $1? Something to make this not happen. And I think
what does that look like?
Right, what does it look like? I just, it's, to me, this is like, I felt taller. I felt,
Same.
what we need to renew. We talk about self-care all the time, and the work I do, and that was self-care. Talk about
That's
self-care.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Honey. And I looked across, and there's Cameron Manheim, like right over there, right over there. And we have a friend in common, and we shot a little video and sent it to
Wow.
and then that show. It filled me.
Mm-hmm.
It filled
Not to mention me getting to meet Andre the Shields. That and I said, as he was autographing my playbill, I said, 10-year-old me is getting his life.
Right. And just all of it. And that was special.
There is so much sadness in the news of its closing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think, joy in the fact that it did exist. And it's my hope that other producers that, will see, oh my God, what happens when Black queer people put their hands on something? I hope it becomes maybe a litmus test for the magic that we already know we possess, but that we continue to show to people. Sometimes they don't want to see, sometimes they can't help but see. But there is a beauty in it having existed that we cannot undermine, and we must work to ensure that the work in and of itself continues to live.
Yeah.
It stays alive.
And it's okay to say, I think, we're just tired of finding that pearl.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it existed. Better to have loved and lost. Better to have loved and held on to it, for fuck's sake.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yes, the fascinating and again, from a sociology perspective, are the things that are coming out. And I have two dancer choreographers with me right now. So one of the narratives is the number of injuries.
Right.
And, we talked about that on the way home, ballroom and Broadway. And you here in this particular space know the rigors of dancing on Broadway and, 8 shows a week and all of that. But they're acting as if that played some role. And I'm not sure that it did. I don't know.
Now you know.
But we have no dearth. There's no dearth of talented people
Right.
to fill that stage. We're only talking 30 people. You know, one of them's Andre DeShields, and he's fine. And the other one is Junior LaBeija. And, you know, unless she trips, she going to be fine too.
Right.
Like, so, you know, it can be a movable cast is my point, because this is very physical work. But what do you say to that? Just let's cover it while we're here.
I'm going to say this. This. I danced in The Lion King for 8 years. 8 years. 7 years. 7 years. 2001, 2008. 7 years. And we're talking about dancing on a rake on a stage that was hard before they did the renovation on the stage for what it is now, wearing a 40-pound puppet, right?
Yeah.
So injuries was happening. We were getting injured, but it wasn't because we were getting injured. It had to become a part of the conversation. What do we then now do to ensure that the dancers stay safe? And it was a conversation that we had to have with the dancers, with equity, with the producers, and with the entire creative team. And we worked together to make it happen. So that can't be the excuse. Injuries cannot be the excuse. People on Broadway get injured. That's just what happens.
Thank you.
Performers get injured. If you are doing a shablam, if you're going to be doing a shablam, you might tweak or something, right? You might tweak or something. And so it's important for the planning to incorporate those elements. And or for the choreographer with beautiful choreography to then go, okay, maybe we can't do that 8 times a week. Maybe we do, right? So to figure out how to, you know, alter the choreography to be able to do the thing within the confines of or we say, okay, because it's so physically demanding, we're only doing 4 shows a week. There are ways around ensuring that this story stayed alive.
Let's highlight a different dancer, right? You're going to
do that.
You'll do a death drop on Monday, or not Monday, but you know, Tuesday, Thursday is your death drop. You're on Wednesday. Like we could work this out if we wanted to,
right?
Because The Lion King didn't close because of injuries.
It's 25 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I just saw it for the first time 2 years ago.
Did you really? You didn't see me in The Lion King?
I didn't.
You didn't see the real Lion King then? I'm joking.
You know, and I had an opinion about that in the beginning because I'm like, oh fuck, now we're going to Disney for shit because we can't have it. And then you know, it is something spectacular. It is something. You know,
it's magnificent.
Well, and not because Garth Fagan's name
Lion King still makes me. The open circle of life in The Lion King still gives me goosebumps and make me cry. Mm-hmm. It is one of the most magical openings in Broadway history.
I got it. When it was first announced that The Lion King was going to be a musical, I honestly will tell you I wasn't going to give a shit until I heard Garth Fagan was the choreographer. Then I immediately gave a shit because I'm like, okay, Garth Fagan choreographing with The Lion King, that is going to be good. No matter what else happens, it's going to be good. And I think I was right.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something about Lion King and Garth Fagan too, though. That Lioness chant, I think that won him that Tony. That Lioness chant is the single most example of what choreo musicality is and of what storytelling through choreography is. That Lioness chant, woo! And I was in the show, so I got to see it. But those women as lionesses and the singers and dancers, one of the best dance numbers that told a story. That hunt, when that gazelle goes by and they all went go go go. Stop it. But no, there's that. But I do believe that there is. I don't know if there's a. I know that we're all responding now, and the response is a good thing because we're all saying this should not have happened. And when you have that many voices saying a thing, then it's necessary for us to do a revisit. Right. Where did we go wrong? What could we have done better? What was missing in the conversation? You know, whose voices were not being heard? What needed to be done to ensure something was missing and someone fell off? Right. Because this was too necessary, too rich, too present, too contemporary for it to not have been supported the way it should have been supported.
And I think that the powers that be might have tried to treat it like any other show.
And
Like,
it was not.
right. Like when we were talking about like treating injuries, like I'm just thinking about like those children's knees, because you can duck walk for 5 minutes at a ball once a week. That is different than doing that shit 8 shows a week. Their cartilage is mush by the time, you know what I'm saying? And that's a focus that needs to be a specialized focus that needs to be paid attention to.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a different skill set. And I think like when you treat things like a novelty, which I think is ultimately what this was for some people, you don't think about the specialized needs of the specialized skill set of the specialized community.
Right.
You know,
I wonder, Charles, was that a part of the conversation, right? When you have a creative team and you have consultants and you have people in the room, I don't know if anyone was like, okay, to be doing a death drop 8 times a week, twice on Sundays, twice on Wednesdays, what does that look like long term? I don't know. Because there are tumblers in The Lion King. Ray Mercer, shout out to Ray, was a tumbling fool. Like that brother was tumbling every night on that hard stage, right?
Right.
And yes, maybe, and he doesn't miss shows.
Right. How about that?
So what was the conversation?
Right.
Yeah, I don't want one of those young people to think there was anything more they could have done. I mean, that's
There's that.
In my soul. I mean, I felt their performances. I felt life. I felt joy. I felt, this is trans excellence. This is Black excellence. We were just like, and queer joy, just the whole, all of it.
I want to push back a little, Martha, only because I love this idea of Black and trans excellence, but you know what? Trans and Black mediocrity should be okay too, because white people do it all. You know what I'm saying? We can't just be. Why do we always have to be?
I'm not
on?
Yeah.
No, I know.
But honey, I talk about that 364 and a half days a year. When we are able to, put this together and have this.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally. Like, we should be able to throw some thrown together nonsense out there and have it be accepted and tolerated, and just like anything.
Because they do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but to that point, you will always answer for Black mediocrity. I will always answer for trans mediocrity. And we have our outliers. I come from the land of broken toys, and I put my head down a couple times a day and go, oh God, there's straight people watching. But
why are they
get
here?
to be you. You get to do that. Yeah. I get a little tired of being asked to answer. What do you answer for them? You know what I mean? Like you all got serial killers to answer for, baby. Like, you have the pedophile
and mass shooters. Yes.
You got the shoot right. You got all that mess, but yet y'all get to be individuals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you are a part of a monolith. To be recognized for excellence means you are superior in so many ways.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, but that's a whole different conversation.
I've sarcastically done that before.
Yeah.
As the representative of my entire race, I would say.
But it does happen. It does happen.
It happens all the time.
Subliminally.
Yeah. Well, what about this? What about it?
Right.
I get tired. We all get tired of the things that come at us from often well-meaning people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, I don't know the politics of the economics of Broadway. with regards to who owns what theater and, who
Right.
gets rented what and for how long. But there has to be, I know there's a Black Theater League or Black Theater constituents of sorts. And so I'm wondering what happens if we stop being redundant, right? We stop going, okay, there has to be a pool of money that goes into ensuring that certain things get solidified as foundational. I'm wondering what that looks like to go, we're going to take 3 new Black queer or just queer or a trans or an immigrant, and we're going to put this money into this person to build this thing for the community, for our community, and continue investing and reinvesting in this so it becomes a living ornament of what's possible when you put money into Black permanence, into
Right.
Black and queer permanence. What happens if you fund because in a way we have been doing this thing and we continue to do this thing and we do it on little to nothing. What happens if you put the money into the thing and watch it flourish?
Right. Because as our friend Kathy is fond of saying, Black people got money.
Now.
So
Right.
why can't, but then I'm thinking like, if Black people, Black queer people exclusively
Sure.
were to come together and create this funding source, wouldn't that then be like outside of the establishment and therefore like push, you know what I'm saying? Like how do you take this outside money and use it inside the establishment without, you know, the pushback? Because you would think
as an insurance policy, even what
Right.
about that? I mean,
Right.
how do we ensure the white shit that stays around long enough to become
Right.
iconic? How is that insured? Because again, I wouldn't have seen a lot of things with half price tickets had there not been empty seats.
right.
Sure.
Even sometimes for major things, it happens. Oh, what?
Like, I guess I'm trying to say is like how would that be seen as just, you know, part of this status quo as opposed to like this special thing, that also exists alongside as opposed to within. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. You remember when you asked me to, what are some of the shows that we can like do cross-referencing and compare and contrast? The truth is the data doesn't lie. And while it might not be the full truth or the only truth, it's a part of the truth. And we have to be able to tell the story, point to the numbers, and then say, this could be an answer. It's not the only answer, and by no means am I saying that it needs to be segregated or separate, right?
Right.
It just has to be included with intentionality. It has to be a conversation. If a story that is not mainstream gets made, how do we protect it? How do we hold it? Bringing in a Black faculty member into a predominantly white institution, yeah, that's great. Now you can champion diversity. But what are we doing to protect this Black faculty member? What are we doing to ensure that this person who is now living in a predominantly white neighborhood feels and has contacts with, oh, this is where the church is. This is where I get to do my hair. These are the ways in which you can stay alive, metaphorically, but also literally.
Right.
And that's usually on you.
Right.
That's yours.
But the community, if you know now that Black stories are going to be introduced and invested in and or included, then the white majority of the Broadway sector need to then say, what do we do to ensure that this kind of visibility will be maintained and sustained?
Right.
They have to be. They have the people who who hold the, what do you call it, the purse strings, the money bag. They have to believe in and value the things that have not been traditionally present. They have to believe that it needs to exist.
And isn't that at least potential? That is at the heart of this.
It really is.
And the broader conversation. Well, we did it, but it wasn't an immediate success. Therefore, And so how do we say, well, okay, wait a
I
minute.
don't know. But we have things to point to, right? When we think about places like the Met, when you have a Leontine Price, a Kathleen Battle, what's the other diva's name? Jesse Norman, right? These people
Yes.
came along like it was they weren't all at the same time necessarily. Denise Graves, but these black voices, they weren't supposed to be in that place.
Right.
But you couldn't deny them.
Right.
Right. And so, but there's also someone took a chance on them. And then we realize that, oh, this is a thing. We have to realize that our, not only potential, our reality is ginormous.
Yes.
Cats, though it did not last necessarily, it will survive.
Right.
And I believe this conversation, these writings, the fact that people saw what was possible, this is going to ignite another conversation, and that is, what do we need to do to give it its second life? Because I don't believe it's over.
And there's now a whole generation of people
I hope it isn't. Truly.
Yeah, but there's a whole generation now of people that when they think of Cats, they think of this version. They don't think of the old version. So there's that. And two thoughts that were on my mind that I have to make sure I get out. One, we kept calling them death drops. They are dips.
What's a death drop?
A death drop I found out is when you go from either a standing or a crouch position and you jump/fall back onto your butt with your legs in a straddle. That's a death.
Oh, really? That's a death drop.
Yes.
Huh.
But
I've been calling the death drop, so you know.
Right.
I have to.
I just have to make sure that, you know, like it's known that I do know the difference before someone says something about me.
You know they will.
Noted. They're going to say other shit. Yeah.
And also, I do know, like, for instance, beloved Camille Brown, once she got her first gig choreographing for Broadway and got nominated for a Tony, then that led to more choreographing gigs, to directing gigs on Broadway. And so, like, that's what gives me hope with Arturo and Amari. They created this wonderful experience choreographically for this, and I'm hoping that will only lead to more work for them. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why I was sobbing my full head off during this show, because I'm watching all these fabulous people on stage going, y'all are all Broadway stars now.
Y'all are
all Broadway stars.
Doing the
and
thing.
You should be. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be a
interesting
one-time
too, though?
thing.
Right.
And it's never that, right? But what it does show, and you talked about Camille just now, it's something I do not like. This idea of always finding one person and that person becomes the only person for the next 10 years. But what this does show is that there are others. Right? Yes, there's Camille, but there's so many other talented choreographers who are doing amazing work. And so this is one way for people to see what is possible. We have to just get out. We have to get out, and we have to support, and we have to call things out when we see it. And we have to ask these producers directly, why won't you commit to funding, supporting, and advancing certain stories? What is it? What do we need to do to ensure that we get to see ourselves represented on the Broadway stage for long runs?
Yeah.
I am wrongly or rightly, like I'm picturing one person pulled this trigger. You know, like Mr. Potter is somewhere going, yeah, well, we're done with that. And then everyone else falls in line to try to make it make sense. But, you know, I want to know who that is. You know, like, who gets to just go, we're done.
Right.
We're done now.
Right.
It didn't do what I wanted it to do as fast as I wanted to do it.
Mr. Broadway.
Yeah, Mr. Potter on Broadway. I'm just picturing it. I'm picturing, you know, a self-loathing faggot with all the money in the world pointing the finger and saying, bored.
Right.
And
I mean
because and I just, it's hard not to put this in the context of the broader narrative right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
truly, and say, okay, if indeed there is a majority of Americans who are not okay with what's happening, why are we letting things like this happen? And and I'm sure I know there would be the pushback of, you're talking about a Broadway show. We've got folks who are unhoused. We've got folks who haven't eaten today. And that is true. That is true. But if we don't,
we can still have the same we can have both conversations at the same time.
Thank you. Yes, we can, and we need to, because if we don't preserve the arts, what the hell are we doing?
That part. Right. What are we fighting for?
And the truth is, some of these people who are no longer going to be with a job will potentially be in a line waiting for some. So we can't talk about one without talking about the other. We are talking about livelihood, but we're also talking about Black and queer erasure.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
And so for me, Black and queer erasure is homelessness.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Hey. And so we cannot, I don't believe it's one or the other. It's both and. Right. And so, yes, another Broadway show will come, people will invest, it'll do well or not, but we have to talk about relevance, we have to talk about permanence, we have to talk about representation, we have to talk about inequity, we have to talk about invisibility. All of those things matter, and it forces us to be critical in our approach to these conversations.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And sidebar, I'm sitting here thinking, when is Bill T. Jones going to choreograph on Broadway again?
What was his last show?
Spring Awakening.
Was it? I thought he did one after.
Did he?
Who did Fela?
No, that might have been Bill T. Jones now, actually. I'm actually not sure. Yeah, someone tell me.
Okay, he did both. Fela was 2009, Spring Awakening. Oh, he did Paradise Square.
Oh, okay, good. Shut me up. Then. Never mind. There you go. Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
When you going to notice what he's doing is the question.
Yeah.
Fair.
We got a different question now, don't we?
Fair. I will shut the fuck up now.
So this is what I want to ask. What do we do now? What happens now? In your beautiful minds, what happens now? Like, where do we go from here?
Someone figures out how to ensure that this has longevity and this nightmare goes away. That's always my wish, and it never happens. But it's always my wish. Like, somebody will swoop in and say, this is too important. How do we preserve it?
Okay.
And I think you're right. No matter what, it will live on. It will continue to happen. It will be reimagined. I think that that's true. I'm just tired of scraps. I'm just tired of the dismissal of it all. And I wanted to have this conversation because it's not yet a postmortem, and I'm tired of who controls the conversations. The Playbill article is Andrew Lloyd Webber and what he has to say about this whole thing. Okay. All right.
I mean,
but
I have this thing that I call wildest imaginings. And it's something that I do when I do whatever workshops that I lead, and at the very end, there's gonna be like a call to action, right? But it's lubricated by wildest imaginings. If there were no barriers, what would it look like for Broadway shows with those who have been historically minoritized? What would it look like for that show to do well and for it to have a long run and for the performers and the creative team to be Black and queer and completely joyous and successful? What does that look like? Wildest imaginings.
It looks like whatever's happening that kept Les Mis alive or Phantom of the Opera. I mean, sorry, but that
it also
the model I have. It looks like people are going to stay invested and put their money there, and take some losses for a longer period of time. And I think. Go ahead.
It also looks like theaters like the one we were in, where it's full of Black and brown people with 7 to 20 white people, as opposed to
the reverse,
right? Which is what it was. Because I was like,
you always count.
I didn't.
I always
play count the
you
Black
always
people.
Count.
And I I saw 20
Really? Is that it?
at Cats. I mean, that I
Right.
could see in front of me. And, you know, it's just interesting. It's like all of this black and brown queerness on stage. And it's like all these white people that are the ones consuming it. And, you know, fine. I'm, you know,
Sure.
great. But what would it mean for a theater full of black and brown people to like also consume this on this?
Yeah.
Just that's the kind of thing that
Yeah,
I
I'm
would
gritting.
love to see.
I'm gritting because what you're saying is so true. And I do want to ensure that I insert this part of my perspective into the conversation because it's around this idea of value, right? Ballroom culture, voguing, queerness in the arts, black perspectives through a certain lens. And I think about higher education and how, you know, certain dance forms are not central to the curriculum, right? People will
Right.
come to dance schools and they'll get 4 years of modern, 4 years of ballet, and all these other forms are electives, right? Whether it be hip hop, whether it
Yeah.
be flamenco, whether it be Bharatanatyam, all of these other forms are othered and they are electives. And what
Yep.
this says, it says to the institution, it says to the students, it says to the teachers that this is not something we value.
Right.
And as long as that is the conversation in higher ed, the training ground for potential Broadway stars to say that these things are tangential, the ballet and the modern are necessary. As long as the voguing, the hip hop, the rapping, as long as those things are tangential and othered and sidelined and marginalized and on the periphery, then when it comes to what's going to be theater and or fully realized works, they're also going to be othered and peripheral and marginalized and sidelined because we don't even want to teach it. Then why
Right.
should we pay for it? We don't want to teach. It is not something that will be taught, will be nurtured, will be elevated in the space, in the training space. Then by God, why should we pay money to see it on a stage? Because it's not even
Right.
something that can be trained. It's not something that is even taught. And so we have to have these circular conversations around what we value, about what we deem necessary, and what we call technique.
Right.
So the conversation is layered, and I'm digging through. I'm playing dog with a bone right now because I'm digging to bury something. And there is a truth. I've served as a professor of dance for years enough to know that when we say we want to decolonize the curriculum, it means decentering something. And so if we're going to decenter ballet, I watch all them white professors go, but. Even though they were the primary advocates of decolonizing the curriculum. So my original question was,
We just got
let's
brown
change-
tights 10 years ago.
Until, right? Until there's a hint of, I have to give something up.
Right.
They don't want to. Imagine that. Imagine that.
I want to decolonize, but what you're trying to teach me is that some of what I'm enjoying is because of colonization, and I kind of like it. Now what?
That's the difference between, for instance, not being actively racist and being anti-racist.
Yep. That's it.
Right.
That's it. That's it.
Being an ally and being a co-conspirator.
Period. Because now the work begins.
Right.
Now the discomfort begins. Like, who is willing to get up and give someone else a seat at the table? You're not willing to do that, then shut your mouth. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But so
Right.
I do find it really necessary to talk about what are the things that we teach. Listen, lots of schools, their African American Studies department, their ethnic studies department, their Black Studies department are closing.
Right. Right.
So it's from the top down, this idea of what do we value? What do we want? What do we want to explore? What are the things that we think are necessary? And the things that are not necessary are going to be erased, are going to be omitted, are going to be, invisibilized. And so this is another example of that being the case.
Truly making room requires ongoing effort and
Absolutely.
education and, sometimes sacrifice.
Yeah,
And
that part.
finding the folks who, see it in practice and say, yeah, let's keep going with this, doesn't happen
Right.
like it should.
Yeah.
And, the thing that gets to me, and, Charles and I have talked about this more than once, is there is a white cynicism that happens. And we've seen it play out. I don't want to be too specific about this, but where we hire someone, and I'm thinking of a Black trans person in particular. We hire someone who checks the boxes and shuts up the people who want this. But we hire someone who's not necessarily qualified.
Yeah.
We're not going to help them. We're not going to, figure out how to create their success. We're going to let them flounder. And then we can say, see, we tried, it didn't work out.
Right.
Yes.
And I would love to not believe that end result is not a part of the original thought process.
Yeah.
But I think it might be, where it's like,
We'll
okay,
never know.
well, we'll give you
We'll
this.
never know.
Right.
We probably won't. But, I've seen it too many times where someone, it's almost like, fine, here. And then when that person drowns because they were meant to drown and you didn't help them in any way, you can say, well, we tried it.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of how do we create a pipeline? Instead of how do we ensure, as you said, how do we ensure success? Because that should be a leader's role, right? The people who I work with, their success is mine. That should be a part of leadership at all times. It's not.
What you're saying is it's titillating me. I love the word titillate, but no, it's titillating me because and I don't know when it will come out. This month's Dance Magazine, I wrote an article about ethical leadership because I wanted to showcase and demonstrate how an organization or an institution's responsibility should live with the dancer long past the final bow. Like when you hire a dancer, you're responsible for ensuring that when they leave, they are prepared for the next phase of their life. I honestly believe that, and that is ethical leadership. So when producers take on a Broadway project, what is the conversation that goes from the initial reading to 5-year run, final production? What does that look like? And is there a plan, or is that throw things in the air and hope for the best?
Right.
You can a Broadway show of this kind. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, then you have to think about longevity for whom.
I mean, we could have the same conversation around elite athletes.
Right.
Right? Ethical leadership.
Sure.
Do we prepare them for what comes next? They've got this small window to make incredible amounts of money, and then what?
Right.
Right? Or the ones who wind up injured and don't. What are we doing in that regard?
Right.
Usually not much.
Right.
I do, but I think it can be translated to other art forms or disciplines. And I will say this: we're having these conversations around a certain type of body, around marginalized bodies. Think about it, right? For majority of the players in the NBA are Black. Am I?
Yes, they are.
Right.
It's not that far off, right? So the reality is we're getting something from this group, the NFL. We're getting something, and I will, of course, these are millionaires. Performers are not millionaires, so
no, exactly.
I have a little less,
fair,
for them.
Fair.
But you're right.
I was in the body. Yeah.
The circularity of the conversation has to be that, though. What does long term look like? Right? For the sport, for the bodies, for the mindset, for the mission, for the outcomes. What does long-term look like in a performance, through a performance lens, for the production, for the creative team, for the performers, for the investors, for the audience members?
Yeah.
What does long-term look? Because you want also for people, the audience members, to feel like, oh, I want to come to the theater because there are stories that are being told that I want to hear.
Agreed. Oh, agreed.
Yeah.
Because you know what, I'm gonna stay in my black ass home and watch, Love Is Blind. You know,
Right.
we can do that, or you can do interesting, innovating work. Because when you think about the people who are minoritized, there are lots of us, and I don't know, maybe it's the tickets are too expensive. Certain people can't afford it. That has to be a
Right.
part of the conversation too. What are we doing to ensure that certain people have access to Broadway show tickets? I know Mamdani's doing the
Right.
best he can, but at the end of the day, we have to do our part in having circular conversations. Tickets
Right.
are expensive.
Yeah. And getting more and more. So
They are.
And getting more and more, because gas price ain't going down either.
Yeah.
But it's never just an easy answer or an easy fix. It's complicated, it's layered, it's complex, but it starts with asking the hard questions, and for us to all do the self-introspection, because we are a part of the conversation. We're also a part of the solution.
Right.
Yeah.
And, yes, the accessibility of theater is a part of the conversation. This got to Broadway.
Right.
And too often we don't ask that simple question, now what? Now what? And it's the question.
I wonder.
isn't it? Now what?
I wonder with the cast and I would love to be. Once a year when I was in the King, Julie Taymor, the creative team, would come back and we do cleanup weeks where the entire team brought Garth,
In the
Julie,
King.
Leba, and in the King, and they would sit on stage. We'd be in the house and they would clean the show, right? Have notes and stuff. I would love to know with the producers and the directors and of the show of Cats to sit. And while it's imagining, what would it look like for that show to continue? And for them to, as a collective, find the solution. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I cannot keep thinking through a white supremacist lens, right? The
Right.
things that have been happening, it won't work. So they have to somehow combat this with a new narrative. It has to be a different,
right.
it can't be the same approach.
Right.
I would like to know what Laomi thinks. Not just as a performer, because she is constantly having the conversation about the fundamentals of ballroom and how we're letting pop culture dictate what voguing is and isn't.
Sure.
And people are starting to look the same, and we're getting away from the foundation, and we got to keep that alive, and cleanliness and technique and rehearsing and stretching and taking care of yourself, and all of these conversations around ballroom. And that is why she's such a leading authority in the community. So those are the people that whose voices need to be in the room too.
Yeah. I would love for Vogue to be in the curriculum of a dance program, right? There to, and I know I say get me away from whiteness, but to have a codified Vogue vocabulary. I don't know if if that should be a thing, but with room for the phalanges to do their thing. But I do believe there if it's taught in a way where people see the need for it, and we should not wait and seek validation from whiteness. I get that. But there are ways to augment and expand the curriculum by looking at what has been historically and institutionally marginalized, and rework it so that students find value in the things that are not being taught, not mainstream anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
How do we, because sometimes, do we reframe that narrative? Do we say, how does privilege, because you can't really have the conversation without saying the word whiteness, but how does privilege fix this? Because it often is who has
It
it.
absolutely is. Absolutely.
You know, so we've got the folks with the talent and the folks with the money, and rarely are they the same.
Same. Yeah.
So, right, how do we frame it in terms of, because that it's what Maya always said, you know, when you know better, you do better. When you learn, you teach.
Right.
When you have, you give. How do we get to that place? You know, because
I don't know.
here's what came through my head was, you know, and Pose kind of framed it pretty well. Like Madonna brought an awful lot of attention to what voguing was,
Right.
to ballroom in general. You know, it double-edged sword. You know, did she properly back away after she created the star? I don't know. Did she?
Yeah, you're asking all the right questions. I don't know if people are going to be answering it honestly, and because of
Well, I
that,
know.
we're going to be doing this all for the next
I
10
know.
years.
Well,
I just wish it's almost like when I went to grad school in Dallas, like someone called me the N word, and I was like, okay, bet. Like, I'd much rather you call me. I know where I stand, right? I know not to fucks with you. I know, right?
Yeah.
If I don't know, I'm still negotiating with you and inviting you to my house. And when I know how you, right? If I know and I'm good, I'm anchored. Call me a nigga, but
Right.
you gonna call me your friend and da 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 da. Yeah, that I can't mess with. And so when people think about spending money on productions, if I know an investor does not fund black works, then you don't need to do this for the money. Find a white show that you want to spend money on, and I will spend time and energy on curating and cultivating something else for someone that I know values what I present.
Right.
If we're not going to be having honest conversations, we're going to be having this 10 years from now. These will be the questions we're still asking. Because
Exactly.
if a brother producer literally got up and said, "We do not fund black shows because we don't think that if they're going to stand up 10 toes down and answer the question, then we might then go, okay, bet, and then find ways to a solution." But
Right.
we can't. People voted for a person who is an adjudicated sexual assaulter. To me, that doesn't make sense. So when half of the people go, well, no, I didn't vote for him. Well, somebody did.
Uh-huh.
Right. A third voted for him. A third didn't, and a third stayed the fuck home and said,
sure.
I'm not even a part of this process. Even though you will reap the benefits thereof. But yeah, and that's why I say I don't think it's as bleak, you know, in terms of how many, right. But it's pretty bleak. And as long as we're holding on to those systems, you're right. I don't think we do get a straight answer. I don't think we do get an honest answer. It might be better if they would just wear a goddamn badge, you know? And that's what I wonder who is sitting there pulling the strings.
Yeah. And I wonder, what would happen if the producer, before they pull the string, would meet with the cast and say, "Hey, let's look at the numbers together." What would that look like for everyone to feel like they're a part of the process, right? They go, "Listen, we only have $1 million, and if we keep going, then this is going to happen. And what do you think we should do?" And then they all together decide on a path forward. That could be. I mean, maybe I'm completely thinking too far out. But what if Julie Taymor, Garth would put the whole cast together and say, okay, The Lion King, we only have, I don't know, $2 billion, and this can only last us for 5 years. What do we do to keep it going for the next 5 years? What would you like to do? For everyone to buy in. And then everyone, I'll go, look, I'll take a pay cut so we can all decide on doing this thing, collective decision making. What does that look like?
Right. What does it look like?
True equity as opposed to just being a cog in the wheel. Yeah.
But
I just want us all. I remember in 2020 when, COVID happened and my schools were out, and I was still getting paid. So I felt bad for all my friends who were performers, and were like, and I was like, oh, should I? And every now and then I will Venmo them $10 for a drink or something. But what happened was school was opening back up, and the president sent out an email, and he said, for all the faculty I think we were getting like a 2% raise or something, and because schools lost a lot of money that semester due to COVID, and students were not on campus, so all that money went out. He asked, he said, would you faculty members who are expecting a 2% raise, would you be okay with delaying the raise so that we can keep the staff, employed? And you'll get your raise retroactively, like in 6 months. And I was like, absolutely, right? It was a no-brainer to me. Right. However, I found out that a colleague said no, they wanted their 2% raise. We stopped being friends.
Right.
I couldn't. Right. The mindset, like we're doing this together. I always think of community.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If I take a 2%, it might take away from Martha's rent. So how about I just leave it so that Martha can still be employed? I'll get my money in 6 months. I don't really need it. So let's just make it work. But you over here begging for $10? Crying for $10?
Right.
Come on, man.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, if anything, is what is diminished, in our current society, is the idea of community, is the idea of connectedness, that, yes, we are. We have the conversation all the time. I mean, now that we live in New Jersey, we pay exorbitant property tax, but you know what?
Yeah.
We live in an amazing school district, and I want smart kids around us. I don't, you know what I mean? I want them do it because that's what builds a society.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And again, what you're saying is correct, but that when there's a collective sacrifice, but the producer sits there and says, but this is the return I have to see on my millions.
Right.
Yes.
Or else fuck it.
It's yeah. That's not community centered. Listen, we talk about village. I always look at things through a hope framework. I try to. I also look at it through community framework, right? If I'm on a team, who is the weakest on the team, and what can I do to ensure that person who is the weakest is still a part of the team, right? I don't cut off the weak link. I go, okay, as a leader, you ask what needs to happen. And I don't know. When you think about a Broadway show, there's so many moving parts. God knows I don't, I'm not a producer, so I don't know. But we're thinking about strategizing around funding, strategizing around leading, strategizing around creative leadership. And if you want to move away from a colonial mindset, if you want to move away from a white supremacist mindset, you're going to have to do things differently. And if you're not doing things differently, then ultimately you're going to get results that somehow look like we're not thinking carefully and intentionally about race, gender, and sexuality.
Boom.
Well, we know we're not.
Right.
I mean, we know we're not. And I guess that's the thing, and the reason that I just want to go back for a moment, because I think it's important to say what ensured time for these other shows to eventually, if that was the case, to prosper, to remain. What was that recipe, and what is missing in this one?
Yeah.
Is it just racism? Is it just transphobia, homophobia? Is it those intangibles that God knows we're probably never going to have an answer to? Or is there something? Is there something? That
did it meet the touring guys, the metric to get to tour? Because I think you have to do 6 months.
That's what I thought, and I think no, and that's why not at least that, and let them to get to touring, and because I'm kind of hearing no, and what the fuck, like please,
because
why?
I can see that tour right now.
Absolutely. So could I.
There are people in, Wichita, Kansas, or wherever, Bumfuck, Idaho, who have never seen a Broadway show, and this being their first. My first Broadway show was Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Oh,
right?
okay.
With Cheetah.
Oh,
and I was in Toronto. Don't play with me. I was in Toronto and I saw it and I thought to myself, like, first times are always so magical, right? I was in that house going, I could not believe it. The first time I saw two men holding hands on Christopher Street as a 16-year-old from Jamaica, this is where I want to live. Those things last. They stay with you.
They do.
And I just know that there is a baby in Montana wanting to see a show like Cats, the Jellicle Ball, that would change their lives. And we did our babies wrong by cutting this too short.
Absolutely.
The world lost something.
I didn't even realize that was the metric before a show is worthy of touring.
Touring, yeah. They had to be on Broadway for a certain amount of time, and once you meet it, that tour kicks right in, and you get to get your thing out there, and that's necessary. That's important. A show like Cats, the world needs to see Cats.
Yeah. I think another month. Like, why August 8th? Why are we cutting it at the knees? I don't know, was there political pressure involved? It wouldn't surprise me at this point that, somebody somewhere in this decision process went, let's stop them at 5.
Yeah, right. I will say this, and because I am speculating and we're just insinuating, what I do want to say, that I think is really important, is that these stories, the people making these stories, the people realizing these stories, they're necessary. And in talking about it, we're talking about the value of marginalized folks who are creating art.
Yeah.
Because the art we create, it realizes a world where sometimes we don't even see ourselves.
That part. Yeah.
We are building a world that has oftentimes pushed us out.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not the true definition of what equity is, of what goodness is, then I don't know what is. Because we're building a world that oftentimes excludes us. And we're still saying this world deserves to exist.
Yeah.
And it's worth continuing the conversation.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Gregory King, I can't thank you enough for joining us.
No, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for trusting me with your space and for allowing me to have a voice on it.
Absolutely.
I have a feeling this is not going to be the last time you join us at the Full Circle table.
I'm here for it. I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
I hope that, may we put this conversation into the world very soon, and I don't know, may it bear some fruit and get some folks thinking.
Yes.
But yes, it was lovely spending the morning with you both.
Thank you.
You as well.
I really appreciate you both.
Likewise. You've been listening to Full Circle,
the podcast.
I am Martha Madrigal.
And I am Charles Tyson Jr.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Full Circle is a Never Scared Productions podcast, hosted by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, produced and edited by Never Scared, executive produced by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal. Our theme and music is by the Jingleberries. All names, pictures, music, audio, and video clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.